You're listening to E-commerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder, and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
Well, hey there. Welcome back to E-commerce Fastlane. I'm your host, Steve Hutt. Now, today we're going to dive into, I would argue, one of the most overlooked marketing channels that's absolutely massively crushing it in Europe, Australia, around the world in most places, but not so much in North America yet. But I think a lot of that is changing, and it's WhatsApp marketing. Now, if you're mostly a North American kind of Shopify merchant, you might be thinking, okay, WhatsApp is mostly for texting my friends. I mean, we talked just before recording, but my wife and I have a dedicated channel. Our neighborhood has a group channel, and it's all through WhatsApp. And you think that's kind of like the bulk of kind of how WhatsApp actually works. This is a Meta-owned property. But the thing is that I think all merchants right now are fighting very expensive kind of Facebook ads. I'd argue a very crowded email inbox. I mean, even my open rate on my newsletter, I might be lucky to have a 25% open rate. Well, what the heck is happening with the other 75% of the people that subscribe to my newsletter? So it's so interesting. And so knowing that, I know there's a massive opportunity right now. And that's why I'm having my guest on the show. His name is Jeremy Horowitz, CEO of a company called Coco AI. Very fascinating acquisition he's made. I think he has really a forward thinking now, but what's actually going on with WhatsApp marketing? I think I did kind of a bit of research for our recording today, and he's betting on three things, very contrarian ideas. Number one, he feels that text messaging will become more important than email. That's very interesting. He also feels that Shopify's next big growth wave is more international than domestic. I think that's a very interesting comment. And then obviously AI-powered businesses in general are moving much quicker. They're more adapting to the market. And I think with smaller teams, you're able to execute faster and better and create these competitive moats. So it's really cool. Enough of my preamble, but hi, Jeremy. Welcome to E-commerce Fastlane.
Thanks for having me on, Steve. Really excited to dive into WhatsApp and how it's going to change the game for a lot of e-commerce brands.
I know, man. Let's talk about the mindset shift a bit about WhatsApp, because right now, a lot of people feel, including myself, other than my pre-recording research here, but it's interesting that you're making this bold prediction about what's actually happening right now with WhatsApp, and then why you are, waving the flag for brands now to get involved with WhatsApp.
Yes. The super quick context on myself, we currently run a private equity fund based out of the States where we acquire both brands and Shopify apps. And something that I was really studying, and just from being in the space for a while, I really see WhatsApp today the same as what SMS was in the US in 2019, 2020. It's that new kind of exciting channel where you're going into an inbox that everyone is really high value, right? For Americans and Canadians, like when you text someone that it's the rest of your inbox is friends, families, loved ones, the most important messages. For the rest of the world, that's actually, outside of some countries in Asia, that's WhatsApp. I see the very similar trend happening where the brands who do three things really well. The first one is really think of smart ways to grow their list and give the same as email, same as SMS, same as other own media channels. Like think of a smart way of why someone would want to subscribe. The second one is really value the inbox. The incredible thing about the channel is you're going to see 80 to 90% open rates. That also means you can't send people 5 messages a week, really even 5 messages a month. Like you really have to value and respect that someone is almost definitely going to see that message. And you don't really want to overwhelm their inbox. And then the third one, and where I think the interesting intersection of AI and what I'm the most excited about is now I think we actually finally have the technical infrastructure to deliver on that conversational commerce promise that has been really around for, I think, a decade. And what today has, previously has mostly been you send out a message through your email or SMS or WhatsApp provider, and then you route it into your customer support team and hopefully they respond in 48 hours. Versus today, we have an AI sales agent where, trained on your product data, you have a prompt window to train it as well. You can actually respond to the customers in seconds. And so we just see these amazing use cases where our brands will send out an automation or a flow, a campaign. Customers will have a question like, do you ship to this country? Or I have a question about how to use the product. they'll get those responses in seconds, get to the information that they need, and then go back and buy. And so I think we're just at that amazing moment where a couple of trends and technological shifts are happening all at the same time, that we finally can deliver that incredible experience that, at least a lot of us marketers have been dreaming of since the 2010s, 2015 timeframe.
So it's interesting about when I think about this sort of communication, this sort of channel, I mean, most people listening right now are going to have some kind of a CRM that's currently running. You're formerly Gorgeous, but there's Zendesk and Customer and Gladly, and there's a whole gamut of people that are likely using something. Let's call it Gorgeous. Let's say that's the default install for some folks. So what happens, or how do you play nicely with other tools if that's part of their current toolbox? As what I'm trying to figure out is, what is the look and feel on the website, knowing that Coco app from Shopify, it's running on a store? How is it working in conjunction with other kind of pieces of technology?
I would think of WhatsApp in general the same way that you would think of an SMS tool. So if you're using Klaviyo or Attentive or PostScript or Yapo SMS, and it's very similar to all of those like the way that most of our customers grow their list is the 2-for-1 pop-up. Just on that second page, you're clicking on a CTA button to open WhatsApp instead of entering in a phone number for SMS. We can plug in a checkout. You can grow your lists through other channels. We also do have an opt-in widget, which I think is probably some of what you're referring to. That is honestly much more of like a trigger for a pop-up to open up to start a conversation. What I got most excited about, and after building a ton of email programs and SMS programs that have gone on to do probably tens of millions of revenue, is zero-party data pop-ups for email are great. Hey, what are you looking for in 4 options? Because then you can route them into different experiences in email. What a lot of our customers do is they'll have 2 or 3 of the most common pain points. So we have a lot of health, wellness, skin, beauty, fashion brands. And usually there's some related conversation that someone needs to have to really understand how to use the product. And so what I mean by that is, like, a lot of our supplements brands, it's how do I use this? What can I use this with? What are the restrictions that I need to be aware of when I take this product? Instead of going and digging through the FAQs or digging through the PDPs to go find that information, what we're seeing a lot now is those brands will use our chat bubble opt-in widget and literally have just those exact questions in there. A user clicks that, it opens up that conversation on WhatsApp, and then they go back and forth with the AI to get that information. And so, you should use this before you work out, or you should use this with food, and then they can get to the information that they need, come back to the store because we can recommend products, we can drop specific landing pages, and then they can go and get the products that they want. The other really interesting shift, as well, say the third leg of the stool, in addition to just WhatsApp becoming a major business use case and AI finally being able to deliver a lot of this, is now that pretty much everyone's site is 80-90% mobile traffic, nobody wants to go do research anymore. Nobody wants to go click through your footer. Nobody wants to go read your shipping policy, your returns policy. I cannot tell you, one of our most popular use cases is our abandoned cart recovery flow. So customer abandons your website. We send an automated message, probably exactly what you're thinking. A lot of our brands do that's very successful is they'll say, hey, this is Jeremy from my workout company. I'm holding your order. Do you have any questions for me? And then social proof and some reasons to buy, but no discount codes, no offers. And I can't tell you how often the question is just like, do you ship to this country? Do you have a discount code? Really basic questions that are probably buried just somewhere in links and footers and all these other places that customers candidly just don't, we've optimized the funnel to be so fast and get people through it so quickly that they just don't really want to go find the extra information. And so because we can get that information to them very, very quickly, 80-90% of those conversations with the AI are usually just the basic information that's already on the website that we're just delivering in a new LLM chat interface that people love in a channel that they're used to talking in.
What's interesting, so a lot of people would already have WhatsApp physically installed on their phone already. So I think it makes it more native and very easy to communicate, very similar to, to like doing a text message. You have, whatever app you're using for that. But it's interesting because it's kind of contrasts a bit when you compare it to chatbot solutions that are out there, like the Sendbirds. Even Gorgeous has their own. There's quite a few tools that are doing that sort of thing where they're scraping the FAQs and the PDP pages and other kind of knowledge things that they have on the website. Some of the basic questions are easily to answer, do you ship to Canada or whatever? And that's kind of like what their experience is, or transfer to a live agent and stuff like that. What's the use case now, or the kind of contrast, the difference between these kind of AI chatbots, in quotation marks, versus what you have built now or purchased and now expanded upon? Why is it different or better? Or is it just the fact that the channel is already there and people are used to it?
There's this really interesting line in the sand that's kind of moving all of the time. The biggest difference there is, I would say, we don't handle the true support use cases. So, if somebody wants to cancel or edit an order, process a return, like those really true support use cases, we have this feature in the tool where anytime that the AI cannot answer the question, we pass it off to your support team. We're very much focused on the sales end of it. We recommend, and we actually see a lot of our customers use both the on-site AI chat bubbles and widgets and us. The biggest difference is going to be you cannot remarket to someone through a chat bubble once they've left your website. The magic of WhatsApp is, you're in that high value inbox, you're going to get immediate opens because it's the primary inbox that they use. You're going to get that push notification on a lock screen. And then once you store that information and once you have that phone number, just like email, just like all these other channels, you can then send them follow-up messages. You can remarket, you can retarget them later, that when you have the big promotion, when you have the big product launch, we can send out segmented mass blast campaigns to bring people back.
Another question I have is about this, and I mentioned at the top of the show about this kind of international expansion strategy that Shopify is working on right now. They've put a lot of big bets and they've aligned themselves with a couple key partners with Markets and Markets Pro and a Merchant of Record and all this kind of stuff. So for American brands are able to ship internationally and, have duties and taxes and things like that compliant from within cart. Okay, so that technology exists, but my question to you is that, does that give Coco an advantage now, knowing that Shopify is really educating merchants about wanting to expand internationally? What does that mean for your company and then WhatsApp kind of business cases?
I also want to take a quick rewind because I think there are two just really important pieces of context of how I see that. So let's go back. Let's rewind like 2016 when I was on the brand side. I used to work for a company called Lumi, which was Kim Kardashian's favorite selfie case. If you basically think about it, it's a phone case that had light rails on it. So you wanted to go out at night, you could take photos. And as soon as she endorses that product, and as soon as she posts on social media, I think she was the first person to some crazy number, like 100 million followers on Instagram. We were immediately an international business. I was running e-com, so I managed the Shopify Plus and the Amazon business, as well as some digital marketing channels. And I cannot tell you the nightmare it was to get people product in like Brazil or the UAE, or I can't remember, it was either Romania or Poland. Like just the core infrastructure at the time wasn't there. And being a US focused and US centric brand trying to expand and sell internationally. And this is even before we get to things like marketing and localization and the proper ad units and all those, the proper language, like, kind of what we now consider to be, I'll give Shopify a lot of flowers. They've done a very incredible job getting this infrastructure built out over the last 10 years that, now the brands that I talk to and advise, we were a mid 8-figure brand at the time, like now 7-figure brands are even considering going international pretty early because Shopify has just made it so much easier. The other major piece, just because I spend a lot of time analyzing Shopify stock and the earnings reports and all of those other pieces in my newsletter, Shopify basically at this point has so overly penetrated the Canadian and American markets that there are only two real levers for growth here are get bigger accounts in existing markets or go find and go conquer new markets. And so, right, I think everybody's very well aware that they're going and grabbing bigger and bigger, more impressive logos. But at the same time, they also do need to move into more of Europe that isn't just the English-speaking countries, more of Asia that isn't just the English-speaking countries, LATAM. It's really interesting to see what they're doing in the Middle East and in Africa. It'll be really interesting to see how far they can get into Asia because, once you get into China and some of those markets, they already have a ton of infrastructure. Part of my thesis and my bet here was Shopify's next 10 years is going to be dictated by how well can they expand internationally and how well can they get out of what I call the big four, US, Canada, Australia, and the UK. For Coco, it's this amazing opportunity for us. So because we're pretty much an AI first company and we were built on top of a lot of AI infrastructure, we natively support 96 languages out of the box. And because we grab a customer's country code when they sign up, because we know the language of the browser they're using, they can also respond to our AI in whatever language they want to use, and we can store that in the database. And so we find that actually we're very successful with businesses who are selling in multiple markets, especially when those multiple markets have multiple languages, because you can set up in our backend the automations to go out in English, Spanish, French, German, Italian, Arabic, Mandarin, whatever those actual languages are. We can also segment the campaigns and the templates to go out in those messages as well. And so I think it's going to be this very interesting version of this new age brand. We have a lot of merchants in the UK or in France who are selling in the France, UK, Germany, Spain, Italy, where they do need to support 5 or 6 languages pretty early on in their journey. And you don't want to go hire the 3 translators in all the different countries to go manually do that anymore. And so, yeah, I'm very, very bullish. I've been having a lot of conversations recently with American brands who either moving into the UK and SMS isn't performing great for them, or they have a big Mexico expansion and they want to start supporting that market, which it's very, very interesting. Like Spanish speaking countries have an unusually high adoption of WhatsApp. Like Spain, the actual country itself, Mexico, and then a lot of South America have like over 80 to 90% of the population has adopted WhatsApp. Like it is the main tool there. The UAE actually sees a very similar trend. What I think is the most interesting in the UAE is they've almost leapfrogged email entirely, where most of their communication is actually done on top of WhatsApp. There's 2 major things that can happen that I'm kind of hoping and we'll wait to see. I think WhatsApp will just become the default second channel to email in most of these markets, the way that SMS is the default channel here, because SMS is the technology that the US has used for 20, 30 years. And then we just built our infrastructure on top of that. I think a lot of these other countries are just going to leapfrog SMS. And then the really interesting thing that I'm seeing in like the truest of emerging markets, like where Shopify is very, very early, are those markets just going to, like the UAE, just leapfrog email and WhatsApp will be the primary channel that they use. I'm not as confident in the second use case. I think email will have a core function and the cost structure is just so different. And, every incremental email you send is basically free. So I think like that will still play a major part. But I do see WhatsApp as being the backbone of a lot of brand communications, basically in almost every major market in the world that isn't China and a couple specific Asian countries.
I just want to make sure I call out to, and I briefly mentioned it, but there are people listening right now that maybe have not pushed outside of their domestic market here in Canada or the US. And knowing that Shopify does have a solution through Markets or Markets Pro, and I think they've aligned themselves with Global E, which I think is the merchant of record. And they're the ones that are really helping with the multi-currency and duties and taxes and blah, 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 and on all the international shipping and things. So that's available. I'll put that in the show notes. So I think that's a good call out just to say, hey, that, there's such a huge opportunity. Clearly, Shopify has put their flag in the sand. They tried to build it on their own outside of Global E, and they found out that the infrastructure was just too powerful for what Global E had, and so they decided to partner up with them instead of being a competitor. So call that out, and I'll put it in the show notes. I think that's a good opportunity for those listening right now. If you're not selling internationally, it's easy to do. If you're an American brand not selling into Canada, that's really strange to me, and vice versa as a bare minimum. And then from there, what are you doing about Europe and the EU, and then going into Australia, New Zealand, and whatnot? My next question is around a use case. There's a bunch on your website, and there's a few that I've seen you've posted in LinkedIn, but I'm going to leave it to you to decide, like, you can call out the brand individually or just more anecdotally, but like, what are you seeing early adopters that are using your platform right now? What sort of success are they seeing?
I would say the average account who signs up for Coco, who's, north of 500,000 in sales a year, they typically see a 20 to 40x ROI on their full WhatsApp spend as a channel. For everybody who's been around a while, I'm sure like it sounds crazy. I honestly think that's mostly because the channel is just so new. Most of our brands are the first company in their customer's WhatsApp account. There aren't a lot of competitors in the channel yet. And I remember back in 2019, I was managing some accounts and we saw the 50, 100x ROI in SMS because it was just such an early channel. Over time, give us 5 years, I'm sure the performance will kind of look like what SMS is today. But I would say 20 to 40x is the average. The brands who have really optimized their accounts are sometimes in the 100x ROI category. Average is usually they do a pretty good job setting up their abandoned cart flows, their list growth tactics, and their AI covers the basics and covers the fundamentals so that you're capturing people at really high value moments, converting them in those key lifecycle moments, and then you have that list to drive those high value campaign moments when you do have the really big product launch or the really big promotion. I think that is the important distinction for WhatsApp today also is, you're not sending 2 WhatsApps a week to your customer base. You're maybe sending 1 or 2 a month, and it's truly the most important events. For those brands that are in that upper echelon, what I would say that they've done really, really well is 3 things. One, they've done a really good job of leaning into the conversational nature of the channel when they send messages out. They're always signing it from someone on the team. They're always making it seem like it's a real human texting their friends, and their friends just happen to buy products from their site. The second piece is they've done something cool, interesting, or unique with their AI that I would consider sophisticated. So Main Harmony is a great example of someone who I'd say is set up the AI to be a little bit more sophisticated. So the quick high level on them, they are a fertility supplements brand. So I want to get pregnant. I am pregnant. I recently had a kid. What are the suite of supplements I need to take at every stage of that journey to make sure that it's the most successful? When you think about that specific thing, it's such a high pressure, such a high stress consumer experience. And they have a bunch of, different products where these products you can use while breastfeeding. These products you cannot use with breastfeeding. These products you use at this part of pregnancy. These products you use at those part of pregnancies. We've helped them build over time, and they did a really good job optimizing their AI to be very, very specific. And they almost have essentially built a diagnostic into their AI that when someone joins their list before they recommend a product, they're going to ask questions upon follow-up questions to make sure that they have the right information, to make sure that they're not recommending a product that, could have very serious implications on the customer. And I think that's why, there's one of those customers in that 100x ROI category, because their AI is essentially a sales machine for them, right? Like, yes, they're helping answering questions about the product and helping them find the right opportunities, but they've built in some intelligent things where, if they say the right things for a fertility pack, it will recommend the fertility bundle instead of just individual products, where now it can actually, the AI is upselling for them. That's a really strong use case. Some of our brands really know their way around how WhatsApp pricing works. So the very, very short thing, not to get into too long here, but Meta essentially gives you a 24-hour window where as long as a conversation is active, a customer can reply and you don't pay again, right? So you just pay the one time that the message went out. The customer can go back and forth. Because of our AI, those conversations happen very quickly. And then you don't pay until after that 24-hour window is over. And so what some of our customers do that is very intelligent is if a customer opens a message, they have started a conversation. If let's say that a big promo is coming to an end on Sunday, they'll send a WhatsApp message out 24 hours before that promo ends saying, hey, big promo ends tomorrow. Here's the discount code. Here's the CTA link. Go buy. Let's call it 20 hours after that first message goes out. Hey, our sale ends in 5 hours. Make sure you don't buy. It's the same concept as resend to non-openers an email. The difference is that in WhatsApp, that second message is free because you're targeting the conversation. And so what some of our customers have done is they've just completely blown out their campaign ROI numbers because, that second message will maybe go out to 60, 70, 80% of that original list that has engaged, not bought yet. And that second message is completely free. And it's, that last second, very, very urgent message that will drive a lot of performance.
Yeah. The FOMO. Yeah.
I don't recommend everybody does that all the time. You definitely will burn your list out faster if you're aggressive with that tactic. But because of some of the mechanics of how WhatsApp works and the infrastructure that we have, they've gotten very, very creative on how they leverage the open conversations that they have with customers.
So let's talk about the implementation of the tool. So you have a Shopify app. Can you walk us through kind of like what happens once they install it? But what's the ingestion process? And then what's the next steps to go live?
It's honestly pretty simple and straightforward. So we have a Shopify app. Brand will install our Shopify app. On a 20-minute onboarding call, we usually connect their Facebook account. WhatsApp Business Manager lives within the overall Facebook Business Manager. Facebook just wants all the ways that they make money in one clean place. Then from there, we usually help them set up the basics of their AI, like getting in their FAQs and their policies. We have some fun ChatGPT prompts and projects that some of our brands have been using as well. From there, they set up the templates and the messaging for their abandoned cart flows. And then it's just coming into the list growth tactics of do they want to add in the magic links, the chat bubbles, all of that process. Usually they have their abandoned cart live in an hour of actual work. That usually maybe takes a day or two. From there, over a week, and then usually a week, they then set up the other programs and the other processes. It takes about usually a month of just once a day, once a week, checking the conversations in the AI to make sure that, we like the way that this is positioning that phrase or that product, or that the information is accurate. From there, usually a lot of our brands just let it run until they have a big update for the AI, a new automation that they want to launch, or a big campaign or promotion that they want to send out.
I see. Okay, very cool. So I know we kind of chatted before recording today, and I understand that you would like to offer a special promotion for those that are listening today, because I think the whole idea here is that a lot of people are not doing this. And I think being a early adopter, kind of the first mover advantage kind of thing, I think it's really important. And that's kind of why I have you on today. In the last few recordings I've had some founders on that have some really leading edge stuff in the AI space that I think just, those that are listening, like, don't just kind of go to the next podcast and don't do anything. Like, you should really literally take action. I'll throw it back to you. What sort of offer do you want to have and what sort of next steps?
Yeah, so we usually have a 10x ROI 30-day money-back guarantee. Anybody who mentions Steve or the e-commerce Fastlane podcast, willing to just give you all a complete free 30-day trial. Our goal is still to get you well above a 10x ROI guarantee in your first 30 days with Coco. And then from there, like I said before, a lot of our brands quickly scale up to 20 to 40x ROI.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for that. So it'll be ecommercefastlane.com/Coco. That's COCO. And that'll redirect to Jeremy's landing page over at my-coco.com. I'm on page 2 of notes. It's very leading edge stuff. It's really cool that this is available. I'm glad you're taking this whole account to the next level, this whole app, and really getting out there and sharing the opportunity. I think that's the key. And I feel blessed that I had the opportunity to kind of get rekindled back with you again over all these years that we've known each other. But it's great to see you continue kind of being in the commerce space. I really appreciate the impact you have. How can people get a hold of you directly or any other kind of content that you're producing, maybe outside of what Coco is all about?
If anything that I said was remotely of interest or helpful today, the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. So Jeremy Horowitz, HOROWITZ. Twice a day, I try to post something that's helpful or interesting in the e-com consumer space related. It isn't all about what's up and isn't all about Coco all the time. A lot of people like my spicy takes on public companies and earnings analysis. And that's the best place to find me. There's links to my newsletter, to Coco, and all the other resources there.
Beautiful. I'll be in the show notes. I'll have it all in there. Thanks, Jeremy, for coming on the show today. Much appreciated.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on, Steve. Thank you.
All right, take care.
Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you personally for being a loyal listener of E-commerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company powered by Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.